Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining me today as we explore the power of tone, how words, context, and audience shape meaning. This course is designed for advanced English as second language learners who have a firm grasp of English pragmatics and a robust vocabulary, but are seeking further refinement in more nuanced aspects of US-based communication practices. This course breaks down the mystery of tone of voice interpretation by showing how tone can be interpreted depending on various situations. So let's dive in. There are two main instructional strategies at work throughout the course. One of those strategies is the cognitive apprenticeship model. The basic premise is that learners have a limit to what they can achieve on their own. But if they are working alongside an expert or a coach, then that limit is pushed out further, their knowledge being augmented by the coach's knowledge. In this course, Veronica, the tone detective assistant, functions as that coach throughout. Here she is introducing herself, as well as the learner as a tone detective. Which brings me to the other major instructional strategy, scenario-based learning. Within the tone detective theme, the entire course is treated as a scenario, where learners are gathering clues to solve tone cases. Learners are given a broad overview of what they will learn. One learning objective is to analyze how tone functions as a mediating tool within specific US social or professional contexts. Another is to reflect on how learners' own communication norms shape their tone choices and interpretations. However, in the course itself, these objectives are simplified to give learners a sense of direction while maintaining a narrative cohesiveness and immersion. Remember how I mentioned that one of the learning objectives was for learners to reflect on their own communication norms? The course begins with a pre-assessment and asks them to do just that. Here we have a phrase that is taken out of context. Learners are encouraged to reflect on their own past experience. Where might they have heard this before? How do they interpret it? When learners think about their past, it acts as a scaffold to connect that experience with the new, upcoming content. Once the learner has had a chance to reflect, they are given an opportunity to commit to an interpretation, attempting to solve their first case, which is followed by feedback from Veronica. Here, she explains that it's simply too hard to interpret without more information. This is a typical example of feedback. Research has shown that ESL students experience anxiety specific to traditional language learning classroom environments, which is why this course aims to provide a low-stakes environment where feedback is not presented as correct or incorrect per se, but rather as more or less appropriate depending on the context. Learners have a chance to experiment in simulated environments without the pressure of real-life consequences. Here's another example of cognitive apprenticeship in practice. Veronica actively guides learners on what to look for in a message, such as this one, helping them analyze this particular message. Here, learners are encouraged to take a look at who is sending this message by clicking on the yellow hotspot. Once learners click on the hotspot, they are given a little bit of direct instruction, followed by a more detailed explanation from the coach. Here, she is helping the learners make a connection with how power differences can make a message feel more urgent or direct. As a function of the cognitive apprenticeship model, Veronica maintains consistent proximity to the learner to help connect the dots. After the learner, along with the coach's guidance, has explored all the hotspots on the email message, all of the clues they have gathered are brought together in one place to consult before they make an attempt at interpreting the tone of this message. This encourages further analysis and reflection. Now, the learner has an opportunity to make a more informed selection. Once a selection is made, the coach offers detailed and tailored feedback depending on the selection, with either the case being closed or updated. If an appropriate response is made, depending on the context, then Veronica closes the information loop by reinforcing key concepts. If the response is not so appropriate for a specific context, she will either reteach concepts directly or, as in this case, encourage learners to take another look at their clues and reconsider their answer. And that's about it for this presentation. Thank you so much for watching.